Welcome to the channel, guys. My name is Jess. So Bitcoin's most recent weekly candle close was miraculously bullish. We pushed above $104,000 just as 10 a.m. came up and we were saved by the bell. But has it all really been enough to flip the script? We're going to dive into the charts today and talk about the most recent weekly candle close and all the price action since to analyze how things are really shaping up and everything that you need to be watching out for. Let's get into it. As always, before we dive in, make sure you guys smash that like button and subscribe to the channel to get regular Bitcoin analysis every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. And sign up to my free Telegram for more regular Bitcoin updates. If you're a trader and you're interested in joining my VIP trading channel, be sure to message me down below on Telegram. VIP gives you exclusive access to my personal trading setups with exact entry points, targets, and stop losses. Alrighty guys, so jumping into the charts, let's take a look and talk about our most recent weekly candle close. So this one was a really important one, as moving throughout the week, we had been retesting the top of this weekly range, right? This purple dotted trend line or the top of this sort of parallel channel that I've drawn in here, right? This black line and the purple dotted trend line that extends us to 104.4K. So moving throughout the week, we can see we had dipped into the range there, tapping 103,000, and Bitcoin was in really a dangerous situation, right? We're falling back into the weekly range. There was a potential there that we were losing this level of what should have been macro support and falling back into the range. In 2021, this exact pattern is what signaled the top for Bitcoin, right? We went on to enter a bear market after exhibiting this exact same pattern on the weekly chart. So big red flags were popping up all over the place. But if we take a look at the close, we actually managed to establish that 104K as a base of support, and we closed above that level after sort of zipping below it at 103,000. If we take a look at the daily chart as well, we can see it was just on that Monday morning. So for in Australia, the close is on Monday morning at 10 a.m. At Monday morning, 10 a.m., the candle zipped right up just as the close was happening, and we pushed above to 105K as the close was happening. So it was a really sort of edge of the seat, precarious moment there. So that's really important though. We've established that level as a support. And so it sort of negates a lot of the really large concerns that we had here developing on the weekly chart. And even though we still have this bearish divergence, if all that bearish divergence takes Bitcoin to do is go back down, tap support, and we end up bouncing from there, that would of course be really bullish, right? Because it's essentially showing us that the buys have absorbed a lot of that sort of decrease in momentum that's being seen here and, should facilitate a further bullish continuation. But we do have to take a look at the price action since that close. So even just taking a look at the most recent, next candle that's printing right now, there's still 5 days left, but so far it's not actually looking very strong. So we're seeing quite an indecisive candle. We've got a large wick to the top side and the bottom side, and so far a very small body. So a pattern or a candle of indecision. And generally these sort of candlesticks have a pretty equal probability of going either way. It's not a distinctly bullish development and it's not a distinctly bearish development either. And so that sort of tells us that despite the fact that this close happened, we're not in, or it wasn't the most strong sort of scenario. It was still a bearish engulfing candle. Price action since then has been weak, and we are in quite a interesting period too, moving into economic news. So in 2 days time we've got NFP data coming out, and in 1 week's time we have CPI data coming out right as well, which is of course going to be really important. And so that might be contributing to some of the indecision that we're seeing here and some of the compression. Maybe it's temporary, but we still have to take a look at these shorter time frame charts and what exactly they're showing us about how the price action is reacting to the weekly candle close and all the levels of resistance that we've established on the way downwards over here. So if we head over to the daily time frame, let's talk about the most important sort of level of resistance that we're seeing here on that daily chart. So as Bitcoin moved downwards into the last couple of weeks of price action and into $103,000, what we essentially did, losing sort of the short time frame base of support at that red line, was fall into this liquidity zone. We can see it on the Smart Money Concepts indicator, and we can see it through that sort of prior segment of chop that Bitcoin was in before breaking out and rallying to $112,000. We're re-entering that sort of chop range, and entering liquidity zones, we generally have a higher probability of retaining movement in that zone, right? That was one of the warning signs we had on the daily chart moving into the weekly close as well, when Bitcoin closed the daily candle below $105,700. And we can see here the last 2 or 3 days of price action since then, Bitcoin has still been struggling to break out of that range. The last 2 daily candle closes have been rejecting right off the top of 105.7. And if we take a look at this wick here, we're essentially rejecting off this change of character level, or that support that was lost on the short time frame, and that triggered this move downwards. So even though on the weekly chart we prevented the majority of the bearish breakdown, we prevented the sort of really large macro warning signs, we haven't exactly seen a flip of the charts here on the daily chart, right? We're clearly, it's still looking quite weak. We're still not exactly establishing those prior levels as support, all of these those really important prior levels of support, and facilitating it, that retracement back upwards to 110, 112, and so on and so forth. And so what we really need moving forward after this weekly candle close to really flip the narrative here for Bitcoin and to, actually make everything look quite bullish again is to, of course, push back above $105,700, as well as the top of that sort of, I guess, buy side liquidity, or the start of this change of character level here at $106,500 as well, right? So that's going to sort of trigger the next move upwards, and we'll re-enter the prior short time frame range between 110 and 106. So hopefully, that means movement back up to 110. And then pushing above 110, of course, on the short time frame, we can see a continuation back to 112 and into price discovery, as we sort of want after seeing, that retest of the weekly range and the bounce on the macro support. Now, if we zoom into the even smaller time frame charts, let's start off on a 4-hour chart over here. We can kind of see exactly what we're looking out for to signal that either that's not going to happen or that Bitcoin's sort of in the running for that to happen, right? So on the short time frame here, we can very clearly see that level of resistance mapped out. So we have these, sort of consistent retests here of $106,000, well, 106.3, as that sort of support, and then flipping that became our resistance right now, as we're currently rejecting off. And it sort of ranges all the way up to these candle closes over here. We have these wick highs over here at 107, as well as these closes here at 107.3. So the resistance itself is from 106.3 to 107.3, and pushing above that here on a 4-hour chart, so closing above that should signal the breakout here for Bitcoin. And we can also see as well, we've got a small little structure here as we consolidate upwards, this little bounce, and it's an ascending broadening wedge. So these generally are bearish structures. Me personally, I think that broadening wedges are in general a little bit more speculative than, say a triangle structure or a channel structure, just in my personal experience. But it also validates, though, our current analysis, where if we push above 107, we are pretty likely to invalidate the structure. We're very likely to then push above this upper trend line and break upwards out of this sort of potentially bearish structure, and again trigger that breakout, right? So that's what we're looking out for on this short time frame here, to sort of signal that move upwards. And otherwise, we can also see what would, I guess, warn us that that is not going to happen. So here on the 4-hour chart, we can see that that would be a continued rejection from this level of resistance and the breakdown from this structure, right? So fulfilling this bearish ascending wedge pattern, going downwards, we expect a measured move that is the height of the wedge, and that pretty much takes us right down to this base of support, or the base of this liquidity zone here at 102,000, potentially even ranging slightly lower to these two lows down here at 101.3k as well. We can see here, taking a look at the RSI as well, we do have an uptrend here mapping out this sort of bounce here from Bitcoin from 103k, and the loss of this uptrend on the RSI would be one of those warning signs that we're talking about the potential breakdown here, a tap of that sort of base of the structure and the breakdown from then on. If we zoom into the hourly chart as well, we have sort of a similar uptrend. It's not as sort of clear. Let's get rid of the 4-hour chart trend line. So we have 2 points to retest there. So it sort of validates the trend line that we've drawn in here on the price action, right? Because we're seeing matching contact points on the RSI. And we can see as well here on the hourly chart, we have got bearish divergence moving up to these two last peaks. High highs on the price action, lower highs on the hourly chart RSI, right? So the correction here, if that correction goes on to take Bitcoin to, I guess, lose enough momentum to drop below this hourly chart trend line, we're very likely going to see the breakdown scenario for this ascending broadening wedge, as opposed to a push above 107 and an invalidation. So I guess the whole point of this video is to stress the fact that Bitcoin had a bullish or relatively bullish weekly candle close. We bounced on that macro level support. That is absolutely huge. But it's not quite over yet, right? We're still on the edge of that cliff very much. We're still hovering around that 104K level, and the short time frame charts are still not exactly flipping bullish yet. So we're waiting for those confirmation factors. We're waiting for that daily candle close to break out of 105.7 thousand, waiting for the short time frame structure to invalidate here on the 4-hour chart and the 1-hour chart. And that is where we really flip the script for Bitcoin, invalidate that prior analysis of, potential top here, and potentially see a new segment of bullish price action. Alrighty guys, that is a wrap on the analysis for today. Thank you for tuning in for another episode. If you enjoyed the video or you learned something, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel to get regular Bitcoin analysis every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. And join my free Telegram for more regular Bitcoin updates. If you're interested in my VIP trading channel, don't forget to message me down below on Telegram. VIP gives you exclusive access to my personal trading setup, so the exact entry points, targets, and stop losses. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!